Now, I just want to say for the content for today, the content for today should be, as we used to say back in the late 1970s when I was, I think, a baby, your jam. All right, so going back from Bob Marley, Stevie Wonder, jam used to mean like party or to party, partying. I think it came back in the 1990s about like that's my jam, and that's how I want to use it in this context. This should be your jam, right? Along with the events and causes that lead up to the Revolutionary War, should be, if you see a DBQ that talks about you have that prompt, or you have that prompt that says events, causes that you need to evaluate that lead up to the Civil War, you be like, oh my God, I know this, oh my God. Calm down. It's your jam. I know it's your jam. Calm down. It's a gift from the heavens, like that, you know, that you're doing this. And that's what we're kind of reaffirming today and kind of re-emphasizing some of those things that you should know in there. And I hope you get prompts like this, you know, thinking that's going to be your jam. What is going to be your jam? And I think this would just lead up to that. And it may be something that's related to slavery into the 19th century, or something related around to the Civil War in the 1850s and the late 1840s that you're just going to be, oh man, I'm just all gooey inside because of the knowledge, outside knowledge that I have for this and what I'm prepared for. Very good. All right. So, and this is, we're now in period 5. This is part 1, so I'll be up here. So, and you're going to see a lot of stuff. One thing I did want to point out, I don't think I emphasized in the video from Tuesday, is that in the kind of the period 4, part 2, I didn't emphasize probably enough the Seneca Falls Convention 1848 Declaration of Sentiments. That's something that you know, have to know, like I said again, so for this. So that one of those things. Great thing about preparing for this test May 15th, you really don't have to, we're not reviewing as much as we would for a regular APUSH test. It's a lot of these things like you're checking yourself. This, Mr. Price says, and he's annotating right here, what things that I start with my have to know, should to knows, deal breakers, and then everything else is bonus or frosting, you know, on the cake, and you will, and that's good that you are very knowledgeable and overly prepared, and you should be overly prepared for May 15th. All right. So it really starts out with all about westward expansion, you know, the Texas Revolution, the annexation of Texas before Polk comes in, the Mexican-American War, 1846 to 1848. But I put like on the hottest list here that you should know is really the results of the Mexican-American War. Because you get the Mexican Cession, Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, maybe you don't even have to know the treaty, but you know the results. Because this is going to continue the slavery controversy and to continue the growing sectionalism between the North and South here and the kind of political gains here. $15 million, and the reason why I throw out that number, because $15 million for Louisiana Purchase. If you know a specific number, specific date, again, that's bonus that you throw that out there, you can recall that and put that on here. But knowing about this, California, kind of the big dog and kind of like, you know, the whole like prize here, because you know that's going to enter, that we're going to find gold there in 1848, and really kind of starts off the gold rush, helps out the whole economy in a way, and continues on westward expansion. And the kind of like whether the new states coming in are going to be free or slave, that's the big controversy. Okay, very good. Now, going off to number 2 already, for the explosive decade 1850s. Again, you're all giddy inside because you've learned a lot of these since first grade. You've learned these for the past several years, and it would be great. And it's good to know, even if you don't have a direct prompt, maybe it's something about the Gilded Age or Reconstruction. You've already known the historical context, what was going on as far as with sectionalism and dividing the North and South, or even helps you in your kind of conclusions if you have a problem that has to deal with the early 19th century as well. Very good. All right. Have to knows. Like again, have to knows. These are rare. I know it seems like a lot here, but it's actually a lot of things that you already know. And some of them are kind of not really vocabulary or something like that, or events. They're really like, make sure you know these. I think you don't, again, please really examine yourself and debate yourself. Do you know this slavery, Southern slavery arguments, the positive good, the necessary evil on here, the kind of like peculiar institution that is based on like arguments by the South on the Bible, historically, socially, they justify this. Economically, for sure, the economic arguments that, hey, this is what cotton is king and this is what our labor is dependent upon on here as a slave labor. Why do Northerners think that they treat their workers and they say it's free labor, but how much are workers taken care of and taken advantage of? You have to know these Southern slavery arguments in here. So at this time, the celebrity abolitionist is next here. I think on here. And just know a couple of their works. The ones Douglas, Garrison. I didn't mention some of the other ones like Lewis Tappan and I love doing it. But just know them, and maybe like the North Star, Douglas narrative, Frederick Douglass, Liberate. I'm hoping that's a kind of a layup. Underground Railroad since probably elementary school, even daycare, and my hero Harriet Tubman. I mean, I assume but it's good that you had that to refer to and what was it all about and how significant it was. What it did was all this abolitionist movement, just like even the publication of Liberate 1831, things that I'm probably going to need to yell and pound my fist about. It's keep your eyes on the ball, increasing tensions amongst the states, the southern states and the northern states. It's definitely increased. All this stuff is increasing tension with this growing abolitionist movement as kind of the offshoot of the Second Great Awakening, or just really since post-American Revolutionary War. It's increasing tension. Temperature is rising. You have to make the connection. Don't study this stuff in isolation or review it. Please do not study this stuff in isolation here. Frederick Douglass, the North Star, next, like that. Don't do it that way. Well, what is the significance of that? All right, now, here we go. Compromise of 1850. The main thing out of that is the fugitive slave law on here. Knowing that, now that you can it's going to be enforced by the federal government, kind of ironic here, that, the southern states kind of want it by for California comes in free state. You're going to ban the slave trade in Washington, D.C. And now in the territories acquired from the Mexican-American War, we get one of the great terms that you should know that I have up here, popular sovereignty, ruled by the people. People, again, are the ones that's going to control what's going on in the territory and the government. That is the concept, and that is what a lot of the Southerners are always going to, really their argument is that like it should be determined by popular sovereignty. Again, a lot of people are already thinking a lot of the territory and the, that's acquired from the Mexican-American War is not going to be such a viable thing for, the expansion of the slave states of growing many crops, including cotton. But anyway, so popular sovereignty, because that will go into, well, I have on the next thing here, I'm just in chronology in my head right now. I'll just look down. It's Uncle Tom's Cabin, and I put that on there because it's like an anti-slavery eventual book / plays. It's published in newspapers, but it really started, again, because you're smart and you're very smart, and I've always emphasized this, the Northerners up there are not majority abolitionists. They're not saying, hey, when do we free the slaves? Let's work on it. It's more of a political thing, that who has the advantage politically and the political interest to be so-called free states or the northern states. They don't really care about the African American slaves that's down in the South in a way. They think the abolitionists are really cray, and they don't like them themselves. They think they're too radical, too revolutionary. So, but really, Uncle Tom's Cabin is the television Netflix of the time that has where people are kind of glued to the reading and eyes, and it gets people a little bit more sentimental and romanticize the thing about abolition and manumission and freeing the slaves. It does kind of turn the tide. I'm pretty sure you took a poll that just because of that publication, that play, that people are a little bit more sympathetic about having the eventual emancipation in a way. Still maybe not a majority, but definitely it increases kind of, on there to persuade people to, that something should be done with slavery. Next thing here, as far as I need to know, is the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854. He's talking about popular sovereignty. Really, it's really in tune with the Missouri Compromise of 1820, because it says now, wait a minute, you mean there possibilities could be slavery, and it leads to a lot of other tumultuous events, Bleeding Kansas, which I didn't put up in red, or all this really Constitution debate in here. So, all right. And then kind of like the big one here in 1857 is the Dred Scott decision. So, and that's the basic Supreme Court is the African Americans and slaves and all the abolitionist movement can't get any help from the Supreme Court, saying basically slavery may even expand into territory. Missouri Compromise null and void, and African Americans are not citizens. Okay, and that's why you're going to be the need, a connection with the 14th Amendment, the amendment that everybody forgets about, one of the most important amendments. And I think I did put John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry, I guess because I just see that as a significant violent event that kind of foreshadowed the Civil War here. So if you forgot that one, that may be okay of all of them. That maybe it's not ranked in the top. Election of 1860, because it's one of those, elections since we got periods 1 through 7. I tell you, that's on my list here. 1860, and how the Democrats divided between, Stephen Douglas, and Breckinridge from the South, and the Democrats, and John Bell. You don't need to know all the candidates. Know that this is how kind of Lincoln won. And finally, really right here, secessionism and secessionist meaning. I don't take that word for granted, and it's been used ever since really the Hartford Convention. They mentioned that maybe states should secede from the Union and states' rights. It goes to the nullification crisis, it's mentioned. It goes to really the 1850s as they're going through the compromise of 1850 and debating about the Fugitive Slave Act. So about removing, just tearing away, forming their own kind of government and own kind of sovereign nation or country within the United States in a way. So, and you notice that, when, December 20th, that they're the first ones to see. So know that, all right? Bonus stuff I put up here in black. Look, this is bonus stuff. Gag rule instituted in the 1830s. Free soil, Liberty Party, all those things in here. Oh, wait a minute. Hang on, I think I forgot about this that I put in red. I was just thinking about myself and I'm putting it in mine without looking down. Let me switch back, and I apologize because of doing this, but don't worry, you can look at the annotation. You're like, Mr. Price, what about the Republican Party for me? That's big because I think you have to need to know, because that is the party of Lincoln. Even though Fremont is one of the first, Republican presidential candidates, that that it formed from other parties, the Whigs, the Northern Democrats, the Know-Nothings, as the Free Soil Party, because they don't want slavery to spread. It is not the abolitionist party. All right, good. So we need to make sure that it's in your head and that you start there. Again, all this stuff that I'm talking about later with the Liberty Party, Free Soil Party, the Austin Manifesto, that's here. all this stuff is kind of gravy, extra things, bonus things here that you want to do here. The Bleeding Kansas, the caning of even Charles Sumner by Preston Brooks, defending his Uncle Andrew Butler. Even the Lincoln Douglas debates, you don't have to. That might be a primary source you look to. Just recognize it. I think these things are just recognition, not so much going a deep dive into like the Freeport Doctrine, Panic of 1857, and Crittenden Compromise. Okay, you can. That's additional if you have time if you want to look into. Start with the red. Just kind of recognize it like that. Now the Civil War itself, and then we'll kind of end the video. And thing that you have to know that looks really is the advantages of the North. And I've always used the numbers 22 and 9, 22 million as far as the population of the North, 9 million South, about 4 million of that is slaves. So you see advantage North, 22,000 miles of track. All right, so if you can remember, it's 9,000 miles of track to the South. And besides the banking, the large navy, you see, the resources, all advantage of that. And the advantages of the South as far as like their motivations for the war. They're all they have to really do is, do a George Washington, just outlast the North and just sue for peace. And there's some kind of reconciliation. They're going to go through that approach, and it's good. I know people like to mention the superior Southern generals, and I've really nixed that kind of argument, and a lot of historians do too. Northern, Meade, McClellan, even, Admiral Burnside, they are smart. They went to West Point. They train. They have good kind of, maybe like plans, but their actions are really are pretty inept in actions. But it's not like they're, as people want to say that Lee walks on water and, Stonewall Jackson, well, nobody could touch him in battle. It's not that far, like, again, a disparity in there. So, but anyway, the event. You have to really know too much, I think, about strategies, because you don't really have to know the battles themselves in a way like, the number of deaths and, where at exactly is Bull Run. Like, is that, why they call it Manassas Creek there. So you don't have to know these kind of details, the strategies, the Nicki Minaj, Anaconda Plan, the South, they want to capture Washington D.C. kind of plan. Again, the reason why I'm kind of mumbling that a little bit is because it's not as big as I think. It's just kind of the list up here, kind of knowing the chronology and the significance. Fort Sumter, because it kind of starts the war after Lincoln's inauguration, March 4th. April is when the 1861, and you get the between the 11th and 14th, like the firing of Fort Sumter. Bull Run, just because it's like the Union's like, oh my God, it's going to be longer than we expected. Maybe another year, or maybe 2 years. So, 1862 is Antietam because it leads to the Emancipation Proclamation and it keeps Britain out of the war. 1863 is a big summer in July 1863. Gettysburg, big loss for Lee in the South, and Vicksburg is a very big loss, surrender. So you see that it really cuts off the South here at the Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas here. So it really is kind of the beginning of the end. Can this, South outlast? And probably, again, the inept action of some of the Union generals. That's why Grant is appointed in 1864 as commander. And what really starts really sealing the deal is Sherman's march to the sea. Helps Lincoln get elected in 1864. That's probably the biggest result of that and thing to remember in 1864. And you get the surrender at Appomattox Courthouse with Lincoln in, was April 9th? Yes, I believe here. So in 1865, and 5 days later is Lincoln assassinated. So that would make it April 14th. So way to go, Mr. Rice. You can do the math here. So that is all you need to know. And I think I got listed up here too, as well as the ones that you need to know. Of course, Lincoln. How about Lincoln and his evolutionary process about slavery? He thinks that slavery is, again, he's a free soiler. Then he's like, well, Emancipation Proclamation, of course, he's in the Lincoln Douglas debate, blacks are not equal. And that's a prevailing thought, too, about at least probably about 95% of the Americans at this time. They're not a Wendell Phillips. They're not a, William Lloyd Garrison, who's like, think that, blacks are, given a chance or equal. They're not these radical abolitionists in a way. So, and how he turns around to this kind of like, almost to the passage of the 13th Amendment, and even considering that black men who served in the war have a right to vote. His evolutionary state in there, you should know that. And of course, Jefferson Davis, it's kind of funny, you recognize it, like you ask some of you guys, who was the president of the Confederacy? Jefferson Davis. Lee is the big one, Sherman and Grant. There you go about that. All right, cool. All right, so I didn't want to, well, it's long enough always. 20, 25 minutes is long enough, and especially, trying to absorb what I'm trying to say. Take down these notes, please. Please, that's the best way to do this thing here, to get through my, talk here, what you need to know and plan. Please don't wait to the last minute to start viewing these videos. Just kind of keep up in a way. I'm not trying to say every minute that I, send out a video, you got to be right there typing and, recording down what I'm saying. But, by the week, see what the content that you're keeping up and staying, fresh and fly, on here. Tomorrow we're going to do the Radical Republicans. We do the AP history. Makes me nauseous. What's going on here? Kind of 1862-ish to the end of Reconstruction, 1877. That's pretty dense in itself. All right, guys, I don't want to, make this, again, the camera turn off on me, which is probably because it's sick of me talking. You got the annotations. I love you all.